Good afternoon, everyone. Defense Attorney Victor Orsatti here. So yesterday I had an interesting case out of the Larson Justice Center in Indio. I was retained last month by my client who was charged with assault and battery. My client is a nurse, and the victim in this case was her landlord. One of the interesting things of this case is she was already being represented by the Public Defender's Office, and the case was 2 years old. The case had been dragging on for 2 years. And when she met with me, she basically said, Mr. Orsatti, this case has been going on for 2 years. I can't afford to keep missing work to go to court once a month because the case just keeps getting dragged on and dragged on and dragged on. I just need closure. So please, Mr. Orsatti, just either get the case dismissed or let's go to trial, and I just need closure. So, okay. So I go into court the next week. I relieve the public defender. I get named as her attorney. I receive the discovery, and I do two things. One, I set it for a settlement conference in 2 weeks, and I set a backup trial date for 30 days. So yesterday was the settlement conference. So I arrive at court, meet the district attorney. The bailiff ushers us into the judge's chambers. After exchanging pleasantries, the judge looks to the district attorney and says, so what's your offer? Meaning offer to settle. And the district attorney told the judge, he goes, it's the same offer it's been since the beginning. She pleads guilty to the assault and battery, 6 days jail, and probation. The judge looked at me and said, well, Mr. Orsatti, I said, well, I'll give a counteroffer, and that is that he dismissed the assault and battery case, and my client pleads guilty to disturbing the peace as an infraction. This is a very important distinction because pleading guilty to an infraction is not a criminal conviction on one's record. It's a ticket. Usually has a $50 or $100 fine, but there's no probation, and there's just no criminal consequences because it's not a criminal conviction at all. And I'd already talked to my client, and she would agree to that. So the district attorney immediately said, I am not going to give her an infraction. I think she's good for it. We have an eyewitness. But he goes, but I will do this. I will give her a disturbing the peace as a misdemeanor and agree to terminal disposition. Normally, this is an excellent offer because the terminal disposition means you plead guilty, but there's no ramifications other than conviction itself. There's no probation, there's no fines, there's no community service, nothing. So the judge looked at me. I think he assumed I was going to take it, but I had to spoil the whole thing by explaining to the gentleman. I said, he can't do it. My client is a nurse, and if she pleads guilty to any misdemeanor, she's going to lose her nursing license. The judge said, "Oh, that's true." And I noticed when he said it, there was sympathy in his voice. So I sensed something there in the judge. So I said, well, gentlemen, it looks like we've reached an impasse then. And I said, well, Your Honor, before you move on to the next settlement conference, I said, I have a proposal. And he said, okay, well, what is it, Mr. Orsatti? I said, well, would you consider giving my client judicial diversion? Now, judicial diversion is basically you're taking the district attorney out of the negotiations altogether. And now it's just the defense attorney and the judge. And it's not done very frequently. It's legitimate, it's in the penal code, but it's just not done that frequently, and it's only for certain crimes. So my client, again, she's a nurse, she has no prior record. The judge sat there for a second, he said, yes, I would do that. I would offer her a judicial diversion, and then he laid out the conditions, because there's conditions. So the first condition was she had to pay a $100 diversion fee to the court. The second condition was she had to complete 20 hours of community service within 6 months. And then 3, if the victim had any restitution, like medical bills or anything, she would have to pay that. Well, we know there was no medical bills. In this squabble, the only thing that was hurt was his cell phone, apparently. So I went out in the hallway, spoke to my client very briefly. She agreed to take it, and we went back in and took the deal. So this is a great outcome for her. Most importantly, she's going to keep her nurse's license. So as a single mom who's the mother of an adult disabled child, this is her only source of income. It was everything to her. The victim's going to get a new cell phone or a cell phone replaced, and my client's going to avoid the risk of going to trial. So we can put this one in the win column, and I hope you're all having a great week. Until next time.